we look at the past, I would hope we can get inspired by looking at the craftsmanship and looking at the details and long to build better because we see beautiful things like this. Mid-century. So Leviton, it moves into this mid-century era, and we're going to talk about this mid-century design. Everybody know this iconic photo? No? Y'all recognize that? So this is a Stahl House, okay, in Los Angeles. Julia Schulman was the photograph. I'll show you another picture of that. But mid-century is a movement. It's not just mid-century houses. You have mid-century furniture, the Danish modern furniture. Hans Wegner, the guy I love, that I got his chair. It's not his chair, one of his eyes. So we're talking about a whole movement of pottery, art, furniture, houses. It's all part of that same kind of movement. If you just look at the house style, you want to recognize the house styles. Certainly the low pitch roof or flat roofs. This open floor plan goes along with that informal, right? This was an informal lifestyle. This is an informal way of thinking and living. Minimalism, okay? You don't have carved ornate moldings in this era. You don't have moldings. There's minimal design. Large picture windows. I don't know if you've heard my talk about glass, but in the 1940s they developed float glass, which allows huge sheets of glass that weren't available before. So one reason large picture windows show up in ranch style houses is because we knew how to bake big pieces of glass, and that outside inside living happens a lot in this period. Inspired by Frank Lloyd Wright, we'll talk about that in a sec. And the ranch style of houses, the one-story low ranch style houses that are outdoor inside living that happen between Texas and California. But it's a very, I guess, informal. Now, anybody recognize this house? This is a Usonian house. Frank Lloyd Wright, 1939. Notice, low pitch roof, open floor plan, informal, minimalism, large picture windows, modular construction. Okay, you talk about, what influenced that? That influenced that, right? So if you go back to our arts and crafts talk, when we talk about the Rohe house, that was an open floor plan. That was a low pitched roof. So one reason Frank Lloyd Wright is kind of this, oh my gosh, Frank Lloyd Wright, if you're an architect, is because he was so inventive and so ahead of his time and so doing things that were cutting edge and really cool. There's also...
When you use the term modular construction, in that context, I think of modular as sort of built off-site, brought in. How are you using
So you see in some of his houses, he'll have grids on the floor that are 4x4. And so he'll have and of course, complete sheet of plywood is 4x8. He'll have windows that are 4x8. And so he'll have a modular size that then ties in with the brick, the plywood, the everything that would go along with that follows into this modular design. If you look at his floor plans, he'll have this geometric shape or whatever that will then tie everything together and pull everything together. So, if you get into modular brick and you get into other things like that, it's all based on a module, a size that you can build from. Now, remember, a lot of this, I'll come right back to you, is everybody is focused on building fast and cheap and production, okay? Even the design side, okay? So I'm going to show you some houses in the quick called the case study houses that are all about, the architects magazines put on the case study house. I'll show you in a sec. The Museum of Modern Art did a study on, how we can make houses affordable and cheaper, okay? So it wasn't just builders fighting for that thing. It was manufacturers, it was architects, it was everybody working towards, like they're making houses like cars, producing them faster and better. Yeah.
What do you mean by open floor plan? Because I know nowadays...
I'll show you. Yeah. Open floor plan, the question is, what do you mean by open floor plan? The kitchen to the living room. If you think of a 1920s house, okay, the kitchen's compartmentalized way off to the back side. You have very formal entries into new spaces. These houses, there's almost no walls, right? There's dividers, maybe the fireplace, or maybe, if we go back to those Levitt things. See that divider right there, right? That's an open floor plan where the kitchen opens to the dining room. It's not, and this room opens to the living room. So, if you think about it philosophically or sociologically, there are no servants now. They're going to serve me in this area. It's a very informal, open plan. Modernism, too, is not just about, it doesn't get invented in 1950, right? Modernism is happening way back. And we go to, Art Deco conference was 1926, International Style and Design, there was the Museum of Modern Arts thing in 22. The Bauhaus, obviously, that was Walter Gropius. This is his house in 1938 in Massachusetts when he went to Harvard. So modernism is happening, and there isn't this stark difference between modern and traditional at that time. They kind of weave together. Certainly that is an open floor plan. The Farnsworth House meets Vanderohe. He's German. He was at the Bauhaus for a little bit of while. He went to ITT in Chicago and built this house almost as an experimental deal, but a lot of the ideals of this mid-century modern, flat roof, big open panes of glass, informal living plan, right? Outdoor and inside living together. So, you're seeing all of those things happen. This is that case study house I was telling you about. And basically, Art and Architecture magazine sponsored what was called a case study. This was that iconic picture where those two ladies were sitting right there. And the case study was an attempt from this magazine to get architects to come up with unique designs that could be reproducible. Do I have that quote there? The house must be capable of duplication and in no sense be an individual performance. Can you believe an architect magazine said that to architects? That's crazy to me, in no sense to be an individual performance. I don't know whether that means it's not reproducible or not duplicable, or it means get your ego out of it. This isn't certainly Starchitects were just starting to happen in this period. Certainly Frank Lloyd Wright was, but but that is a fascinating attempt, and it gives you an insight into what was going on in the design community for coming up with these houses. So the program doesn't work in the research I was reading because a lot of these guys want to use steel fabrication, and a lot of those things weren't adoptable by builders who wanted to build with bricks and sticks, and so the program, in the literature I was reading, basically didn't work, didn't help, the industry develop a duplicatable house that could be mass produced. But here's an example of that. Richard Nutra, this is one of the complaints about architects of this period was they were building things that were for the elite. This would be an example. They were expensive. They couldn't be reproduced, but there were beautiful houses. I think that's a beautiful house, that were being built at this time, but they were kind of one-offs, and they weren't, meant for the masses. Joseph Ichler. Anybody heard of Ichler? So he was the guy who basically, did the best job of bringing modern design to the masses. I think I can say that. It's interesting, when I was reading about him, he had a second career. He was an accountant for a family business, and he actually went and lived in a Frank Lloyd Wright Usonian house, the Bayzet House, and fell in love with the design. And he said, this is the way we should be living. This is the kind of house that I would want to build. And so very slowly he starts building a house and then kind of checking it out. And then he built 2 houses and then by the time he built the 4th or 5th house, he goes and finds the best architects he can find to start building houses for the masses. This book is really good. It's called Ichler, Modernism Rebuilds the American Dream.
Did he build in California? You see a lot of California.
Yeah, and look, this style and this other house, right? Where do you think that is? That's not in Minnesota. You know, this style works. Yeah, it's in Palm Springs. Does it say that? But that California thing, that works. You know, where the median temperature is 70 degrees or 75, and you know they rarely get much colder than that. These were oftentimes heated with radiant heat floors, but this style doesn't work all over the place. And it's interesting that ichler had a tough time starting and building. One of the comments that one person makes is that not sure ichler could have done it if there hadn't been such high demand. And that some people were buying their houses. Ned, the son who got into the business, was saying he had talked to people that didn't like the exterior, but they liked the feel of the interior, and they said, oh, well, we'll just go ahead and buy it. So it was a interesting thing and comment about modernism, that modern houses just aren't that popular. And so I think it's cool to say I love modern housing, but the fact is most people don't and have a hard time buying it. But he built over 11,000 houses. I mean, he built a lot of houses. Yeah.
All look alike.
They do all look alike.
So is that actual lumber or is that a glue lamp?
It's actual lumber. No glue lamps at that time. At least the ones he was building at were actual lumber. Remember, you still had big trees back then. You had big fir trees that they were building with. You said they all look alike, okay? But that's kind of what the vision was, right? That's kind of what the industry wanted. They wanted something that was duplicatable, right? They wanted something that looked alike. I wouldn't say they're cookie cutter as much as Levitt's were, but you're right. They did build a lot that were similar.
And the rooms are small.
Well, all houses of that period, the rooms are small, the smaller houses.
Examples of that last house are on here, like in Arlington Heights or anything. It looks kind of.
I suspect, I mean, I don't know about that exact one, but well, I got some pictures that when just driving around looking at some stuff that I think is more typical, right? These are some typical things you see, kind of these concrete screens, this big open plans, flat roof. There's this atrium design that he was really, that A. Quincy Jones and stuff had come up with. So, you know, mid-century. These are some of the interiors. Look how open that is, right? Kitchen. I mean, she looks like she's going to the ball. She doesn't, she's not cooking.
That's Mrs. Cleaver.
That's Mrs. Cleaver. Ichler had a whole marketing department that most of his pictures from the marketing department were all staged. And, you know, we're all, you know, this idyllic lifestyle with parties and everything else that they did. He was a masterful marketer.